The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the small village of Iban, where whispers of the past hung thick in the air like the scent of rain on dry earth. Tasha stood on the edge of her porch, her gaze fixed on the distant hills that cradled her childhood home. A soft breeze tugged at her unruly curls, mirroring the tumult of emotions swirling within her heart. This was not just a village. It was a tapestry woven with memories, both bright and dark, that shaped her into the woman she was today. In Iban, stories traveled faster than the river that wound through its heart, each tale carrying a weight that pressed upon its inhabitants. Tasha was no stranger to the murmurs that danced behind her back, nor to the pitying looks that followed her every step. The girl whose family fell apart, they whispered, a refrain that had followed her since the day her parents' marriage crumbled under the weight of betrayal. But what hurt more than their words was the truth of it all. Her mother had chosen the embrace of another man over her own daughter, and in that moment, Tasha had lost her anchor, her home, her very sense of belonging. Yet, she had resolved to rise above the ashes of her family's ruin, to forge a new path that would not be defined by their choices. With a fierce determination that burned brighter than the summer sun, she poured herself into her work as a potter, crafting delicate clay vessels that held more than mere water or grain. They held her dreams, her hopes, her essence. The villagers had come to appreciate her talent, though not without a tinge of jealousy and suspicion. They saw her rising success as an affront to their own mundane existence. And Tasha had learned early on that kindness was a fickle currency in a town steeped in resentment. Among the few who supported her was her childhood friend, Rhea, whose laughter rang like chimes on the wind. Rhea had stood by her through thick and thin, their bond forged in the fires of shared secrets and late-night confessions. But even as Tasha found solace in Rhea's company, she felt the sting of betrayal looming on the horizon, like a storm threatening to shatter the fragile peace she had constructed. "Are you going to the market today?" Rhea asked one sunny afternoon, her brown eyes sparkling with excitement. Tasha had just finished a series of intricate pots, each adorned with swirling designs that mimicked the flow of water. "Of course," Tasha replied, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "I need to sell these before the festival. It's my chance to make a name for myself." She could hardly contain the anticipation coursing through her veins at the thought of finally being recognized for her art. As they walked to the bustling market, Tasha felt a wave of unease wash over her, a sensation that something was amiss. The villagers were abuzz with talk of an outsider, a wealthy trader who had recently arrived in Iban. Rumor had it that he was searching for a rare artifact, a treasure hidden within the village's history, and he was willing to pay handsomely for it. When they reached the market, Tasha set up her stall, arranging her pots with care, each one telling a story of resilience and beauty. The colors of her creations danced under the sun, catching the eye of passers-by. It wasn't long before she noticed a tall figure in a crisp white shirt, his dark hair tousled by the breeze, observing her from a distance. The moment their eyes met, a spark ignited within her, a connection that felt both thrilling and terrifying. This was Leo, the trader they had been talking about, a man whose presence commanded attention. "Your work is remarkable," Leo said, approaching her stall. His voice was smooth, each word carefully chosen, as if he understood the weight they carried. "I've never seen anything like it. May I?" He gestured to a particularly intricate pot, its curves reminiscent of the waves crashing against the cliffs beyond the village. "Of course," Tasha replied, her heart racing as he delicately picked up the piece. "I pour my heart into every creation. They're not just pots. They hold a piece of my story." Leo studied her, his dark eyes searching, and for a moment, the world around them faded. "Perhaps I can help you tell it," he said, a hint of mischief dancing on his lips. "I'm hosting an exhibition in the neighboring town next week. I'd love for you to showcase your work there." Tasha's breath caught in her throat. An exhibition? The chance to be seen beyond the confines of Iban was a dream she dared not imagine. Yet, doubts crept in like shadows at dusk. "I appreciate the offer, but I dash." "Don't sell yourself short," Leo interjected, his tone earnest. "You have a gift, Tasha. Don't let fear keep you from sharing it with the world." The words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, igniting a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was her chance to escape the confines of her past, to step into a future where she was more than just a girl from a broken home. As the days passed, Tasha found herself spending more time with Leo. They shared laughter and dreams beneath the sprawling oak tree that marked the edge of the village, each moment strengthening the bond they were forming. Ria watched with a mix of happiness and concern, sensing the undercurrents of Tasha's newfound connection. "Be careful, Tasha," she cautioned one evening as they prepared for the festival. "Not everyone is what they seem." "I know," Tasha replied, her voice firm. "But Leo is different. He sees me for who I am, not just a girl with a shattered past." The night of the festival arrived, and the village transformed into a tapestry of lights and laughter. Tasha set up her stall with Ria by her side, her heart pounding with anticipation. Leo arrived, looking dashing in his tailored suit, and as he approached, Tasha felt a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. "Tasha," he called, his voice cutting through the festive noise. "Your work is a highlight of the night. Come, let me introduce you to some important people." With her heart racing, Tasha followed Leo through the throngs of villagers, her confidence swelling with every step. As they mingled, she felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. Yet, amidst the laughter and merriment, a whisper of doubt tugged at her thoughts. Was it truly possible for someone like her, with a history so riddled with pain, to find happiness and acceptance? In that moment of joy, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd, her mother. Tasha's heart sank at the sight of the woman who had abandoned her, the one who had torn their family apart. Her mother approached, a forced smile plastered on her face. "Tasha, darling, I've missed you. Look at all these lovely pots." The joy of the festival faded, replaced by a rush of anger and resentment. "What do you want?" Tasha demanded, her voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with bitterness. "I came to see how you were doing," her mother replied, her eyes darting away. "I heard you're doing well in your pottery." "You're right," Tasha replied, her voice cold. "I am doing well, without you." Before her mother could respond, Ria stepped forward, sensing the tension. "Let's not ruin the night, Tasha. We can talk later." But Tasha couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that lingered, gnawing at her insides. As the festival wore on, Tasha tried to push the confrontation from her mind, focusing instead on Leo and the promise of a new beginning. Yet, the memory of her mother's words clung to her like a shadow, reminding her of the hurt that still festered beneath the surface. The following days were filled with excitement as Tasha prepared for the exhibition in the neighboring town. She poured herself into her art, channeling her emotions into every piece she created. With Leo's encouragement, she felt a sense of purpose, a glimmer of hope that perhaps she could finally break free from the chains of her past. But just as she began to embrace her new life, the winds of change brought forth a storm she could not have anticipated. Rumors began to circulate in Iban, whispers of Tasha's association with Leo. Some saw it as a betrayal, others as a danger. The villagers began to view her through a different lens, their jealousy and suspicion simmering beneath the surface. One evening, as Tasha worked late in her studio, she heard a loud knock at the door. Her heart raced as she opened it to find a group of villagers standing on her porch, their expressions dark and accusatory. "You think you can waltz in here with your fancy pots and your traitor friend?" One of them spat, his voice laced with venom. "You think you're better than us?" "I'm just trying to create something beautiful," Tasha replied, her voice trembling. "I'm not better than anyone. I just want to share my work with the world." "Your work? Or is it Leo's work? We see how he's been courting you, trying to make a name for himself at our expense," another villager added, crossing her arms defiantly. Panic surged through Tasha. "This isn't about him. It's about me and my art. You don't understand." But the villagers were deaf to her pleas, their anger clouding their judgment. In their eyes, Tasha had become a traitor, a symbol of everything they despised about change. They turned away, leaving her standing alone, her heart heavy with despair. That night, Tasha lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of their accusations pressing down on her like a suffocating blanket. She felt the threads of her newfound happiness unraveling, each one fraying under the scrutiny of those who had once been her friends. Doubt gnawed at her, whispering that perhaps they were right, that she didn't deserve the success she was chasing. But in the depths of her turmoil, a flicker of determination sparked within her. She couldn't let fear dictate her choices any longer. She would face her demons, both from within and without, and prove to herself that she was worthy of love and acceptance. The day of the exhibition arrived, and Tasha stood before her display, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The gallery buzzed with energy, artists and traders mingling, laughter echoing against the walls adorned with vibrant pieces of art. Yet as she glanced around, she saw familiar faces of the villagers who had once supported her, now turned against her. Their expressions were cold, their whispers sharp, like knives aimed directly at her heart. Leo approached her, his eyes shining with pride. "You're going to do great, Tasha. Just be yourself." She forced a smile, though her heart felt heavy. "What if they don't like my work?" she asked, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "They will," he assured her, squeezing her hand. "You're incredible. Just remember why you create." As the doors opened and guests filtered in, Tasha took a deep breath, allowing the energy of the room to wash over her. With each passing moment, she began to lose herself in the beauty of her art, sharing the stories behind her pieces, each one a testament to her journey. But the doubt still lingered, and the shadows of judgment loomed large. Then, amid the crowd, Tasha noticed a figure slipping away from the exhibition, a familiar silhouette cloaked in a tattered shawl. Her mother. Anger surged within Tasha, fueled by years of hurt and betrayal. Without thinking, she excused herself from the conversation and followed her outside. "Why are you here?" Tasha called out, her voice rising above the murmur of the evening. Her heart raced as she approached her mother, feeling a mix of anger and desperation. "I wanted to see," her mother replied, her tone defensive. "I've heard so much about your work. I thought maybe I could come to understand you better." "Understand me? You abandoned me," Tasha shouted, tears brimming in her eyes. "You chose him over me, and now you want to play the concerned mother? It's too late." The hurt spilled out like a flood, washing over the barriers that had formed between them. "You don't get to come back now and pretend everything is okay. You don't understand what I've gone through. You don't know what it feels like to be left behind." Her mother's face crumpled, pain flickering across her features. "I know I made mistakes, Tasha, but I'm trying. I want to be a part of your life again." "Part of my life?" Tasha echoed, her voice shaking with rage. "You don't get to decide that. You made your choices, and I'm not going to let you ruin this for me too." In that moment, something shifted within her. She felt the power of her own voice, the strength of her own resolve. She had fought too hard to let the ghosts of her past dictate her future. With a final glare, she turned away, leaving her mother standing alone in the fading light. Returning to the exhibition, Tasha felt a sense of liberation wash over her. She had confronted her past, and while the pain still lingered, it no longer held her captive. She poured her heart into her conversations with guests, her laughter ringing out, her spirit unbroken. As the night wore on, Tasha found herself enveloped in a world of creativity, where art transcended the limitations of her past. The villagers, too, began to soften, their skepticism fading as they recognized the passion in her work. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of acceptance, the walls around her heart beginning to crumble. In the midst of it all, Leo stood by her side, his unwavering support a balm to her wounded spirit. "You did it," he whispered, pride shining in his eyes. "You faced your fears and created something beautiful." Tasha smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." But just as she began to bask in her triumph, a sudden commotion erupted at the entrance. Tasha turned to see a group of villagers storming in, led by the very man who had confronted her before. "This is a disgrace," he shouted, his voice laced with fury. "You think you can come here and take what's ours? You don't belong in our village." The laughter and chatter fell silent as tension crackled in the air. Tasha's heart raced, fear gripping her. She had fought so hard for this moment, and now it felt as though it was slipping through her fingers. "Enough!" Leo stepped forward, his voice steady and strong. "Tasha's work is a reflection of her journey, not a threat to your community. We should celebrate her success, not tear her down." The villagers hesitated, caught between anger and confusion. Tasha felt a surge of courage as she stepped forward, her voice rising above the chaos. "I didn't choose to be born into this pain. I'm trying to rise above it. My art is a part of who I am, and it deserves to be seen." As the words spilled from her lips, Tasha felt the weight of her past lifting. She wasn't just a girl with a broken family. She was an artist, a creator, and a woman determined to carve her own path. The silence stretched, and for a moment, it felt as if time itself had paused. Then, one by one, the villagers began to shift, their expressions softening. Slowly, applause began to ripple through the crowd, first timid, then growing stronger, filling the room with a chorus of acceptance. Leo's eyes met Tasha's, a shared understanding passing between them. She had fought for her voice, and now it was being heard. As the villagers rallied around her, Tasha realized that she wasn't just reclaiming her story. She was also redefining her place in the world. The exhibition turned into a celebration of art and resilience. And as the night unfolded, Tasha felt a sense of belonging she had longed for. She had faced her demons, and while the scars of her past would always remain, they were no longer chains binding her to despair. In the days that followed, Tasha continued to create, pouring her heart into her art while forging deeper connections with her community. Ria stood by her side, their friendship blossoming in the face of adversity, a testament to the power of loyalty and understanding. As for Leo, He became not just a mentor, but a partner in her journey. Together, they embarked on new projects, collaborating to bring art to life in ways Tasha had never imagined. Each piece they created was a reflection of their shared dreams, a beautiful tapestry woven from the threads of their lives. In the end, Tasha discovered that while the scars of her past would always linger, they no longer defined her. She had risen from the ashes, crafting a new identity built on resilience, love, and the unwavering belief that she could create a future where her art and her heart could flourish. And as she stood in her studio, surrounded by her creations, Tasha knew that she was no longer just a girl from Iban. She was a force to be reckoned with, an artist determined to carve her own path in a world that was finally beginning to embrace her for who she truly was.